Okay, so today we're going to make a candy cane, and instead of your usual candy cane of just red and white stripes, we're going to try a rainbow candy cane, which shows up so well in your projects. It's so full of color and really adds to any scene that you put it into, and I just love it, like I said, because there's so much color in it. And this is going to be the finished product of what we're shooting for. And it shows up nicely. The colors we separate with white, so each color stands out really well. And then we can make candy canes, candy and lollipops, and pretty much anything else with this combination. You can keep it as thick as you want or roll it super thin for candy canes and so on. So let's get started. We're gonna start with the center base of white. And since we don't need a whole lot, and this really does roll out to be a lot, we're not gonna make a super huge piece. So this is, I would say, a little bit bigger than a pencil going around, but this is gonna be our center that's going to certainly get rolled out and become thinner. Now I've already rolled out the 6 different colors that I want in the candy cane over here. I really enjoy going in the rainbow pattern, the purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. And I like to keep it in that order because it's just really pleasing on the eye. So there's our center. But what we are going to need is white snakes, because we're going to put them in between each color on the candy cane. It keeps the colors from blending too much together, separates them enough to really make them vibrant so that we can see all the colors. Otherwise, they do tend to kind of fade into each other if you don't have a really distinct line between the two. So we'll probably roll out 2 of these about that long of white. And all of these we'll have to trim down a little bit because we want them all just as long as that. So we'll get our second snake done. And I try not to overwork the white too much. White clay, almost any brand of it, tends to soften a lot faster than your colors do. And in doing so, most of the time you can work with that. But when you're making a cane and trying to reduce it, it changes the way the cane's gonna come out if your white is too soft in between the colors. So we don't wanna overwork it. So we're gonna start with our purple. We're gonna go to the very end and lay our purple on. Like I said, I think we're just gonna trim the ends of these as we go so we can keep it nice and neat. And then we're going to put in a white right next to it, right up against it. And we push them lightly into place, not enough to distort them, but just so they stay put. And then we'll cut the excess off that. Now we're gonna go with blue. And like I said, I like to follow the traditional rainbow colors in that order, but you can certainly use any collection of colors in this to make your standard red and white canes, any fall canes in shades of gold and orange and reds. And so, I mean, you can certainly pick any color you want to match up to the scene you're creating. So we're going to keep laying these on. One after another, making sure they're secure. It goes relatively quick once you have everything rolled out. Like I said, we're going to be reducing this quite a bit. I might even have my center a little too large on this. We'll see. Maybe not. And then we have orange after our yellow. Let's cut these ends off. We need a white. And then we have our red. Yeah, it's almost too big, but that's okay. We're gonna make it work. And then we have one more white. And I put the white in between, like I said, it separates them really well, keeps them from mashing together, and gives us a much cleaner look at the end. So we're gonna trim this. Get all our colors set aside. Now we're slowly gonna start to reduce this. I like to start very lightly at first. And this simply, I'm flattening out all the colors and it's pushing them all together with the whites. It's creating flats all the way around. And you can see it's really starting to, and they don't have to be perfect at this stage, but we try to keep our colors lined up at this point, and it makes for a better finished product. So as we go, you'll start to feel it round out and it becomes smooth. And from here, we're gonna keep reducing. Now, if you want, at this point, you can cut off the end. The ends always get pretty messy. And see what we're doing here. So we have our white center. We have our colors going around. And they're all maintaining their shape really well. So we're gonna trim off this end. Now at this point, I'm gonna go just a little bit smaller here. And make sure you rotate your hands back and forth. Go from one side to the other and even pick it up and reset it. You're gonna get a much more even roll instead of bulges or it getting too thin in some spots and others. So we're gonna cut this down. In fact, we're gonna take an even smaller piece and we're gonna set this aside. Now this you can set into your collection of canes and pull it back out and reduce it and use it for anything. Or if you're making a lot of canes, of course, keep reducing, but we'll be able to get what we need out of just this one piece. So I only reduce as much as I need and I tend to leave the rest of the cane larger. It's a little more preserved for me to use later on. So, and we can see at this point, our lines are starting to skew a little bit. That's okay, as long as it doesn't get too bad. We straighten it out every once in a while and we try to continue our reducing evenly so we get a good, fair product here at the end. Now I'm gonna go even one more time. I'm gonna cut this in half. Now I have two pieces that are gonna be ready to utilize here, but we're gonna take this down even further because it's not quite as small as I want for the candy cane. But before I go any further, about at this stage is where it's gonna be easiest to twist, and we wanna put a twist on it. I do this very lightly by hand. I hold it very gently with this hand and do the twisting and let it work through my fingers without pulling or tugging. It's just a very gentle twist. You see already right there, it's starting to get a little thin. So try not to overwork those areas where you notice it may be thinner than others. We're gonna go all the way to the end, gently, trying not to overdo it. And you see what we have here. The colors are still very vibrant and distinct because of that white in between. We can do a little more reducing. We just do it in small batches and make sure we can continue to keep that twist in it without it becoming distorted. Now we're at the stage where we can start making some cuts for our candy canes. Now, depending on the size that you're going with, I've taken this down to what I would call a 1/12 scale piece of candy. I'm gonna trim the end off a little bit. And then right at this point, I guesstimate. I use whatever project I'm working on to judge how long I want this, whether I want a straight cane of candy or a candy cane. I make a little bit longer. Since we're gonna do some candy canes, we're gonna go just a little bit longer here. I'll make 3 candy canes with this. Now it's pretty much ready the way it is. We don't want to give it any more rolling too much. And we're going to give it a curve. And then we'll set it on our little baking pan. And that is ready for baking. And another. Like I said, this isn't really about perfection, but you can get pretty close in making these look very realistic. And one more. So we've got some great little candy canes ready to go in the oven. Now, I also wanted to make a lollipop, and this piece isn't big enough for that. But I am not a wasteful person, so we are going to make maybe some straight canes, a couple of straight canes out of this. And those I just usually pick about right there. And put those over on our baking pan. The straight candy canes are just fun to use in all different kinds of projects. Now, this other piece that we had cut and set aside that's also pretty small, we're going to take down a little bit more because I want to make a lollipop. Those rolled lollipop candies are fun. So we're going to make one of those. And we're going to do our twisting here. Get a nice even twist. All the way to the end. And we're probably not going to use quite that much, but this side's still a little thick. So maybe we'll reduce just a little bit more down here. The clay is pretty forgiving, but at this point, gentle touch is usually a good idea. So rather than try to guess how much we use at this point, for the lollipop, I leave it long, and I start at one end, and we just start a circle. We start rolling it. And the colors on these, like I said, I think are just so vibrant. They make for outstanding miniature displays because you're truly packing so much color into something so small. Okay, we're gonna call that complete. We're gonna cut the end at an angle, like so. And that allows us to push that closed, just like so. All right. Now we're gonna need to put a stem in there. And what I've done is I've cut a piece. I use floral wire for this. I have other wires, but this floral wire, when you cut it small enough, it's quite strong, not too easily bendy. And you can paint it, which I like to paint the stem white when all is said and done. So we're going to, I don't want to distort that, so we'll pull that up. We're going to very gently, because we don't want it poking out the front or the back. I like to put it in right where we cut it. It just seems like a natural place to do so. And I try to get it at least halfway through. And we have our lollipop. Just like that. And then when it's done, we'll paint the stem white and we'll put a beautiful clear gloss, which makes it that beautiful shiny candy that we're looking for. So we'll pop this in the oven, come right back, and finish it up.